Hello internet friends, and welcome to Legion testing first pass video of the Havoc Demon Hunter. Now, a little different than other first passes is that the Demon Hunter is very integral to having your artifact weapon, so this first pass will go over the artifact weapon in its entirety after the spellbook and then after the talents, so we can see how it all comes together. As I've said before many times, the Demon Hunter may only have two passes, a first and second, a first now, and then a second closer to launch to see how everything's changed. I was eventually going to be testing Vengeance, but as you can see, on the PvP realm, you can't activate it, so we're testing Havoc. So the entire testing VOD will be linked in the description box below. It's close to 4 hours long of us going through everything. There's even some additional testing and some discussion with Wordup after my raid from Tuesday, the 15th of March. But aside, I have other things to discuss real quick before we get into all of the nitty-gritty of the Havoc Demon Hunter. So that being said, it's going to be a bit of a longer video. I don't like going over 20 minutes on any of these. Some of them, of course, have gone over because they have brand new, and this is a brand new class, a brand new spec to the game. So I'll be going over everything as well. So if you've seen the runtime on below the video, it's a little bit longer than normal, which I apologize for, but get your absorbing caps or your osmosis headgear on to eat all this information right up through your brain box because there's a lot of things to go over. And the first thing to go over is a lot of this like weird, toxic hullabaloo all over the internet, either on Twitch comments or on Twitter or on YouTube comments or on Reddit or even probably on the forums. I bet that I don't go there because that's scary. Is, oh, it's too easy. Oh, the new class is so simple. Oh, it has two abilities. First off, every single specialization in the game, all the core ones before this expansion, all 34 of them, and the two new ones, which are being designed from the ground up, are all getting simplified. They're all getting quote-unquote easier, right? But they're not going to be like Marksman Hunter right now easy, but as an example, the Marksman Hunter actually is getting a little more difficult in Legion. That's, could be argued, I suppose, but every single spec is getting tweened and pruned and tweaked here and poked there and prodded here to sort of like combine things, simplify stuff, move things from spells to talents or removing glyphs and rolling them into abilities. So many specs are being retooled in this fashion, okay? So as a community, we can please just stop all this nonsensical like, oh, it's too easy, blah, blah, blah. If you're going to give feedback about it, right, you can be constructive. Only it does this because this only happens there and there's too much baked into Chaos Strike or Demon's Bite is so weak. Like, you can give feedback for this, right? But just say like, oh, it looks so easy. Does nothing for the testing process, okay? It does nothing. And if every single class, again, every single spec, again, is getting quote-unquote made easier, finding the difficulties now becomes the task, right? Finding the intricacies, finding the things that are more difficult, finding how to eke out all that extra damage is the learning process again. So much is changing. Everything is going to be new and different to like every single spec in the game. So things are changing. And then just let it happen. We're still months away from launch. Lots of things can change. Lots of stuff can be improved upon, iterated on. I mean, hell, Enhancement Shaman has changed like 4 times in these builds, and it's changing again next build. So my past coverage that I've done months ago is completely invalidated now. That's the whole point, to see what changes, and to have an archive of what changes. That's why I do multiple testings. So, the Havoc Demon Hunter, at first glance, when it first came out, was pretty garbage truck, okay? I'll agree. It was pretty bad. It had, like, no synergies, a lot of its talents weren't working properly, it didn't even have a lot of talents. It has gotten much better, in my opinion. I talked to Wordup about this very much. He is the only person I know of that has made an actual guide for this spec. His guide is in the description box below if you want to check it out. He has poured lots of hours into this, figuring things out, and of course I've spoken to him about an hour last night after I did all of my testing to see, if I was right. And we came to the conclusion there's about 4 like talent paths that you can build. The one I have sitting on here right now is the one that I favor. I liked playing this. This was very fun to me, and a lot of like in and outs and juking and jiving and some cool synergies between demon form and not demon form. It was like a balanced build. But there are like 4 builds to go through. There's a glaive focused build, there's a demon focused build, a demon blades auto attack focused build that changes your stat priority entirely, possibly. and then the super fast movement-oriented build. But those will all come to fruition after I go over all these things in your spellbook. First off, lots of bugs, as you could expect. The bug report is going to be in the video description box below. It'll link you to the entire page and a half of things that I found that are wrong, or oddly worded, or broken tooltips, or incorrectly working things. Demonic says NYI right now, but it actually works. It just works incorrectly. Fell Barrage works, but there's no interaction, there's no resets, the tooltip's broken. There's a lot of things that still have to be fixed up, okay? So check that out. I can't go over all of them in this video, it's too much. But the one big thing that I noticed was that your mastery isn't actually in your spellbook. Normally it says your your passive mastery is in the spellbook, right? But it's right here, and it's a sort of split mastery, which we sort of figured out that it is. You need more mastery to gain a percentage for the Demon Hunter, because you get chaos damage increased, and by the same amount you get chaos damage increased by, you get movement speed. So it's a very fast passive spec, and as you gain more and more and more and more movement speed, you'll have more and more and more and more chaos damage, but so will you then just move passively faster. So that's the first big thing that we noticed that was a little bit, that makes sense for the spec itself, but it's not in the spellbook at all. So it's only on your character platform right now, your character pane, rather, and it's just right there. Demonic Presence. So it increases your chaos damage by a percentage and your movement speed by the exact same percentage, okay? Your only other passives you have are double jump, double jump, double jump, double jump. We went over this before. And then if you're at the apex of your jump, or you can actually activate glide, which is technically another passive you have as the Demon Hunter. You can glide, which is reduces your falling speed, and you can activate this during the jump with the jump key while falling, or you can actually just drag this into your hotbar and make it a button. So you can actually glide wherever. You can just jump off a small cliff with one jump and glide. Right, that's part of it. That's just how glide works. Or if you double jump and then tap the spacebar again, you will then glide. And that's technically a passive and into the spec. And you'll see gliding and jumping is even part of the rotation in some of the talent layout, which is just integral to how you play the Demon Hunter. Other passive, that is the only other one you have, really is Shattered Souls. So when you kill a target that grants experience or honor, the target's soul will sometimes be shattered, leaving a soul fragment behind until canceled, which means they don't have the duration figured out yet. The soul fragment will be consumed when you approach it. It has a kind of a 5-yard hitbox. And it will heal you for 25% of your maximum health. If the soul fragment came from a demon, you will deal 20% increased damage for 15 seconds. Now, the key point there is grants experience or honor. We were talking during testing about, will that work in PvP if you're killing warlock demon pets? They don't grant experience, they don't grant honor, so no. The only way, as a side, to actually get souls if you're not questing or actually getting a killing blow on someone is Demonic Appetite, which you will find is incredibly integral to many of these things right now. It does have a built-in RPPM, where your Chaos Strike will sometimes spawn a soul fragment, and consuming it will give you 30 Fury, as well as, of course, activating the heal, or possibly activating the demon damage increase. But Demonic Appetite can only proc 3 times a minute. Has a 20-second ICD, apparently. But still, that's still 3 souls a minute that you would never get otherwise, because you have to kill things to get a soul. And in most raid settings, you're not actually killing things unless there are ads, and you have to land the killing blow to even get them. So very unfortunate that you can't synergize with that unless you take Demonic Appetite. But that is your only really other passives. All you have is double jump, Shattered Souls, you would technically have your mastery here, and then glide. That's it. That's pretty straightforward. All the other the passives you see here are passive talents. So, to go over all the abilities, before we get into all the nitty-gritty, Vengeful Retreat, normally a 25-second cooldown. I'll change it real quickly here, paired. 25-second cooldown, you viciously assault nearby enemies and vaulting away. Assaulting enemies take physical damage and have their movement speed slowed by 70% for 3 seconds. So it's about a 12-ish yard vault, right there. Take a little bit of damage you see in the combat log here, and there's a little bit of a slow attached to that. Taking Prepare, which I had before, lowers the cooldown by 10 seconds and generates 75 Fury over 6 seconds after using VR. That's a big component to many rotations as well, and there are some shenanigans with Vengeful Retreat, and especially with Prepared, because there are two ways you can sort of game the ability. And these are in my notes that I'll be submitting to Blizzard, and you'll see them right here, right now. They might change, they might fix this, but because Glide is not on the GCD normally, and that VR is off the GCD, you can do two different things with this. There's a macro you can make, which is the easier way to make this happen, which you can actually Vengeful Retreat, and then Glide to cancel the fall away, right, the vault, and then you can actually stop Glide immediately. This works better to test with Prepared, because you can actually see this effect work. So you actually have to jump first, hit the macro, and then you'll just glide right back over to the boss. You can also game it in a way that you don't actually leave combat at all, and that requires double jumping in melee combat with the macro. So again, jump, macro, double jump. Oh, didn't work that time. Too fast. And that's the one thing too, it doesn't always work. So you have to like prepared to, this might not work every single time. You can also do the same thing without using the macro, but with both it's out of work. So let's start again. Jump, jump, macro, double jump. Canceled it pretty early that time. Without using that though, it's a little harder to manage. You can actually do it without usually being at a target. So when that cools down, it's a weird interaction. I don't know if this is be intentional for having this used, but if you actually just this, and then that, see, you just jump up in the air, double jump, and fall out of the ground. So there are two ways to sort of game VR, and I'm not actually sure if that's intended. What it's sort of intended is to volt out and then charge back in with Fel Rush, which we'll go over in a moment here too. But if you volt out by normal, and then you Fel Rush back in, Fel Rush is like a 15-yard speed dash blink. There's the soul jumping over to me. So, and then VR again is like 12. So you rush a little farther past than where you were before, but I'll try to do it with the macro again here. Yeah, it cancels a little earlier, but I don't know if it's intentional, because it's so easy to stay in melee combat. I think the whole goal is that you're supposed to like go in and out of melee combat and do like around the fight. But also, one of the builds, the Fast Demon Momentum build, which I'm not a fan of, is just kind of gameable in that sense, but I'm not sure. Throw Glaive is a 30-yard range, 10-second cooldown Glaive throw. That's about it. It normally hits 2 additional targets, so 1 plus 2 is for 3 in total, but there's an artifact perk that we'll go over after we do all the spell booking, all the talents, that actually gives it 2 more. Spectral Sight's now a cooldown where you allows you to see enemies and treasure through physical barriers, as well as enemies that are stealth or invisible for 10 seconds. Attacking or taking damage disrupts the sight. So you'll be able to see things through walls. Enemies will be with a red border. I think allies will actually be yellow. And a 30-second cooldown happens after the effect ends or is canceled. But this might not really work in Raise too much unless there's an encounter that requires this to be a thing. But we'll see. We'll go over Metamorphosis and more later. The Fel Braid's a talent. Fel Rush is your movement speed ability. It deals chaos damage and runs you forward 15 yards. With a 10-second recharge on 2 charges. I-Beam. A lot of things were asked about I-Beam during my testing process, and I'll try to go over them all real quick here. So it's a frontal direct line cone. By default, it ticks 9 times. If you take the talent Blind Fury, you get 14 ticks in total. But I-Beam is a frontal cone. You can move around, you can pivot and swivel where your I-Beam goes, but you cannot move during the I-Beam. Okay? The debuff you're seeing on the mobs right there is a artifact perk as well. So I-Beam means you are locked in place for the 2-second channel or the 3-second channel through Blind Fury. You cannot move forward, backward, side to side, but you can pivot around and swivel your character in position. That's how it works. Demon's Bite is your builder. It does physical damage and generates 20 to 30 fury. You've been seeing it before. It has 2 different animation styles, the upward backhand slash and then the forward like dive attack. But that is your main builder. It scales with your physical damage. Your spender is Chaos Strike, which the tooltip is broken, so I'll read this all off of the WoW DB. So Chaos Strike slices your target for, it's 400% main hand and 250 offhand, apparently. It's coded wrong where it actually says it's the other way around in the tooltip. Chaos damage, not physical, chaos damage, scales with your mastery, okay? It does 2 slashes, however the actual combat log triggers it as 1 effect. So if the first part were to crit, which is actually the same ability, the whole effect will crit, okay? it actually counts as one ability. Demon's Bite counts as one ability, right? Chaos Strike counts as one ability. There's no Chaos Strike main hand, Chaos Strike offhand. In the, like, Warcraft logs, for example, it's one ability damage. So if it were to crit on the roll, both hits crit. That comes into play later on with Annihilation, the Metamorphosis version, or the talent you can take called Chaos Cleave, which makes it hit one additional nearby target. The rest of the Chaos Strike mechanic, however, is that critical strikes do not consume Fury. Now, how this works, as you see right there, the Fury is consumed to use the ability, but then is refunded, kind of like how Serenity works for Windwalker monks. You have to spend the Fury, but again, if it were to crit, it refunds it. And yes, if you're now wondering, well, what if I take Chaos Cleave? If either Chaos Cleave crits on the main target or the cleaved attack, it will refund the 40 Fury. It does do that. So it does give you an extra roll to get a crit, but there's no, like, main hand, offhand crit component again. It's a one ability broken into 2 hits to link with the attack animation, because you spin around in a cool, Demon Hunter circle right there. But it is technically one hit that factors in main hand, offhand damage into the 2 components, cut in half, and then just synced up with your animation speed. That's how that works. The demon jumping off there is an artifact perk. Oh boy, Consume Magic is your interrupt, 20-second cooldown. It is only a 3-second spell school lockout at a 20-yard range. People are like, "Well, it's only 3 seconds and has a huge cooldown." That's because interrupting something generates maximum fury on a successful interrupt. You get a full fury bar, which is crazy. Your only stun, and also a bit of an AoE component, is a 60-second cooldown. I have a talent right now that removes that. It's a 60-second cooldown that you erupt with Fel Energy called Chaos Nova. You stun all nearby enemies for 5 seconds, and you deal chaos damage. Right? It looks pretty sweet. Right now I have Demonic that works all the time. Again, it's NYI because it always applies. Demonic has a chance when you I-beam or Chaos Nova to turn you into a demon for 5 seconds. But more on that later. Blur is your only DR. Blur has gone through lots of changes. It was a long cooldown with a very short duration, and then doing any damaging attacks would extend the duration up to 10 additional seconds. It was one where it was like a very short cooldown with a very short duration and nothing else happened. Now it is a 1 minute cooldown. You have a 50% dodge chance. It does not work on spells, for all I know. It used to. And then you reduce all damage taken by 35% for 10. So it looks like this. So it is a dodge plus a DR. And that is all it does now. There is an improved version of Blur called Nether Walk, which adds 30 more seconds to the cooldown. When you slip into the nether, you increase your movement speed by 100%, become immune to all damage, unable to attack for 5 seconds. This should replace Blur. However, right now it is bugged and you actually get 2 different versions. So this is the Nether Walk version. You turn pinkish instead of green. And there you go. That's your 5 seconds of movement speed plus your immunity. But again, it should replace Blur. Does not do that right now, so it's just kind of weird. And your last ability in your toolkit is called Blade Dance. This is a spell reduced by your haste. It's a 10-second cooldown, default, 50 fury, and it deals physical damage to all targets nearby when you start. You can move during Blade Dance, but it just means that where you land at the end of the ability will change. So it does physical damage, and it increases your dodge chance by 100% for 1 second. So it's like a it's kind of like an invulnerability frame from like Dark Souls. It looks awesome. However, currently, it's very weird because it's only good on like 4+ targets. It looks fantastic. It looks a great animation, right? There are weird synergies here, as we start working over to talent discussion now, that Blade Dance is kind of awful right now. It looks fantastic, does good damage, but unless you're hitting 4+ targets, it's not worth the fury cost over you just chaos striking the main target. And Throw Glaive is similar, whereas it has no cost and a cooldown, but it just doesn't do the damage required for the GCD because so much damage is baked into chaos striking. So much damage is baked into chaos striking. it's very hard to use Blade Dance or throw Glaive, unless. So you see I have Fellblade talented here. The 102 talent tier is sort of like your rotational changing talent tier. Fellblade gives you an ability where you charge the target and strike with a flaming blade, causing a whole bunch of fire damage, generating 40 fury, and Demon's Bite, your main builder, can reset Fellblade. Now, it doesn't work on testing on dummies. You charge, but the damage doesn't work on rooted targets or immobile targets. It doesn't work for some reason. It works if I go out and like attack a Mushan over there around the corner, but it does not work for testing purposes here. It doesn't give the fury, it doesn't give the damage, but it does do what it does. Wordup did it all in the dungeon testing video on my channel already. So, but this is a rotational cooldown. Now, because it is a short dash, you can actually take prepared and then dash back in. And then if you have prepared again, you can then Fell Rush back in. So there is a built-in synergy between Fellblade moving you as a short dash, and then of course the prepared combo with VR, or prepared of course with Fell Rush. I bring up Fellblade because this is the movement tier of abilities. Fell Mastery increases the critical strike chance of Fell Rush by 100%, it makes it always crit, and it grants you 25 fury when Fell Rush damages at least one target. So it's always going to crit, and you generate fury when you deal damage, at least just one time. Prepared, a movement ability, generates fury. Fellblade, a short-ranged dash, or a charge that generates fury. And then Momentum, or Fell Rush and Vengeful Retreat, increase your damage done by 20% for 4 seconds. So again, using the macro on this to game it, you get the little momentum buff up there, and then you can Fell Rush to get the momentum buff too. You can Fellblade back in, which I did incorrectly. So there is this weird, like, movement-oriented build, which it works together, I suppose, but it's also like, you're gonna move around so much that it honestly might be, like, really just, like, jarring to play as if you're not, like, a really seasoned Demon Hunter and practice it a lot. So it's kind of a weird... I don't like it myself. I understand that it could be very potent, and with larger boss models it won't matter as much, but it's keeping up the 20% damage amp all the time, or almost as often as possible, is like the goal of this build, right? You can use it to like pop a prepared VR and then get like a burst window for like an I-beam or something like that, but it's just... I don't think this is going to work very well unless you're like in PvP and you're moving around a lot, or it's in a fight with lots of movement. Otherwise, it just forces the player to have to like camera spin and look around and hopefully not run into other people, or hopefully not cause effects and things to go off and awry and weird. But that's the movement spec. We'll go back over to my other spec, which I enjoy, which is the more demon-focused spec. Now, going back to the rotational ability changes, First Blood makes Blade Dance deal 200% additional damage to the first target struck. With First Blood, the first target hit, and using Blade Dance in single target is worth it. It becomes worth the rotational button. Now, it even works better if you are AoEing, because you get the extra AoE damage. Again, only the first target hit takes the 200% damage. What this does as well is that Blade Dance becomes another ability, or a metamorphosis. It becomes an ability called Death Sweep, which just like triples the damage outtake, and it also benefits from First Blood. When testing Death Sweep, without First Blood, it was doing like maybe 200,000 damage right now, which again, damage numbers aren't finalized, but with First Blood, it did close to 500,000. Because of how much base damage Death Sweep does, and then how much 200% adds to that. So it is insane. I'll show off Metamorphosis stuff once we get through all the things that inquire about Metamorphosis. But if I do the Chaos Nova through Demonic, which has a chance to make you go into demon form, you will now see it does a lot of damage. And there is Annihilation, which is your upgraded Chaos Strike, which does AoE damage around it as well. All a demon form does, Metamorphosis, which kind of is why people like, it feels awesome, but also feels kind of hollow, is Metamorphosis, which is a 4-minute cooldown by default. The demonic proc of Metamorphosis does not gain all the same perks that the Metamorphosis does, mostly in conjunction with Demon Reborn, which I'll go into as well. What happens is you jump into the air, you land, you deal some chaos damage, you stun within 8 yards around you for 3 seconds, and then you turn to a hellish demon for 30 seconds. Greatly improves your demon's bite and chaos strike. That is the old tooltip. The new one is it improves chaos strike. It becomes annihilation, which is an AoE version of chaos strike, which is ridiculous because again, if any of those crit, it refunds the fury. It also improves Blade Dance. Blade Dance becomes Death Sweep. I'll show you again the tooltip here. You got Annihilation and Death Sweep. Annihilation, Death Sweep. Demon's Bite has no change anymore. But the damage that Blade Dance does is ridiculous with First Blood in this demon form combo. And that's why this is like the demon build. Demon Reborn, as it works in the demon build now, what it does is it resets all of your cooldowns when you invoke Metamorphosis. This only really affects Chaos Nova and I-Beam. Now, to couple that with Demonic, okay, again, this gets so kind of complicated. There's lots of stuff going on here. I'm sorry, but there's just like so much information. Demonic has a chance when you cast I-Beam or Chaos Nova to transform you into a full Metamorphosis demon for 5 seconds. It does not Demon Reborn things, but it does transform you into this. But if you already are transformed, the duration is extended by 5 seconds. So what I found you can do here is you can do a little bit of this, and I'll use the whole combo on this demon build. So you need to kind of like build your fury up before you do this, but you can I-Beam. If it procs, because it won't always proc this, if it procs this, you'll go into demon form, okay? And you get to do a whole bunch of damage for up to like 11 seconds because of how the buff applies. And with the Death Sweep there, and then you can Metamorphose, and it resets both abilities. So you can add 5 seconds with that Chaos Nova right there, then you can add 5 more seconds with an I-Beam, and then you can go to town. And now you've got more time in demon form than you even had before. And again, you will use Death Sweep over and over again during this form, because it does so much damage. You, of course, can use Prepared in this form as well, to give you more Fury during this form. Do another Death Sweep right there. Keep going. Another... Yep, see, any of those that crit, you just chain annihilations. It's insane. Another Prepared for more. I did the jump a little bit wrong there. Another one, another one. You can add 5 more seconds again. If it proc, you get an I-Beam comes back up. You get 5 more seconds. You're still going. Let's do a Prepared real quick here. Let's not charge back in incorrectly. Whoops. And we keep going with that. We get 1 more Death Sweep in there. Maybe 1 more Annihilation. 2 more. Almost. So the reason why Demonic is NYI is because it always works on I-Beam and Chaos Nova. It should not be doing that, because that is ridiculous. It should have a chance to add 5 seconds or a chance to go into demon form. But the demon build with Unleashed Power, which removes the Fury cost of Chaos Nova and reducing its cooldown, gives you 2 abilities that can possibly add time in Chaos Nova and in I-Beam, and gives you a chance to go into demon form before you actually use your regular demon form with Demon Reborn that resets I-Beam and resets Chaos Nova to give you a chance to add even more time. I will also jump to the side real quick here and show you why this demon form build with Demonic Appetite is also ridiculous. There's an artifact perk called Feast on the Souls, where consuming a soul fragment reduces all cooldowns by 5 seconds. So, as the gears turn, Demonic Appetite has a chance to give you a soul fragment, which again has like a 20-second ICD. But on average, you'll probably get 2 of those for 10-second duration cutoff of I-Beam and Chaos Nova during a Metamorphosis. So the chance of using Demonic with Unleashed Power to add more time to a Demon Reborn reset Chaos Nova I-Beam Demon Form Metamorphosis is a little ridiculous. That's enough about that build. The other build is kind of like an AoE-ish kind of build. You would take Bloodlet, your other rotational ability, where you throw Glaive causes targets to bleed for 190% of the damage inflicted over 10 seconds. If this effect is reapplied, which means it ignites basically, any remaining damage will be just added to the new Bloodlet. On top of that, you can take Master of the Glaive, which gives Throw Glaive 2 charges and a 50% snare as well. Now, Demon Reborn does not reset Throw Glaive, so you can't throw glaive, go into metamorphosis, throw glaive. It does not do anything like that. It doesn't work at all. But however, you can, every time your bloodlet gets down to about 4 seconds on the actual buff here, which is actually 5, you can recast. So you can keep this bleed going, Again, the recharge is 10 seconds long on the ability, so you can keep this bleed going. You can keep the bleed going, right? So you see the situation here where this might be really good for a sort of cleave fight, or of course an AoE fight, right? And Bloodlet just does enough damage to make you use Glaive Toss, throw Glaive, in your rotation. It makes it worth it because of this bleed. It's a 190%, basically 200% of the damage done by throw Glaive, and it's a lot of damage over time. It'll be a huge thing. But again, that's why 102 is very rotational based. Having Bloodlet means you can use throw Glaive. Having First Blood, you can use Blade Dance. Having Fell Blade gives you another ability. If you take Fell Blade, you're never going to use Blade Dance unless you're AoEing. You're never going to use throw Glaive unless you're out of melee range. So this is a huge tier that changes up a lot of how the class will play. And it's a lot to take in that once the math is figured out and once the actual tuning comes into play, that might change. But right now, that's how 102 looks. That if you don't take Bloodlet, you don't use Throw Glaive. You don't take First Blood, you don't use Blade Dance. If you take Fell Blade, you don't use either of these abilities. You can take them off your bar if you want to. Because they just don't work. They don't work enough. They don't do enough damage for the GCD. Because again, so much damage is in Chaos Strike. So much of your damage is in Chaos Strike. And obviously making sure you have the Fury for Eye Beaming on cooldown. So much damage. So, the Throw Glaive build also kind of works well with Fell Barrage, which doesn't work right now. Where Fell Barrage, again, the tooltip is broken. Let me bring it over here. So, Fell Barrage is 5 charges, a 30-second recharge time, a 20-yard range, instant cast. At your command, you unleash Fell. You inflict 190% of your attack power per charge in chaos damage to your target and nearby enemies. Whenever you use Fell Barrage, however, it will unleash every charge built up, and your damaging attacks have a chance to generate a charge. The damage will apply if I use the ability right now. There's just no animation. There goes Fell Barrage, right? It has sort of a 4-ish yard AoE. That's why I only saw a couple hit the Raider dummy right here. But you cannot build back charges by using abilities. But Fell Barrage is kind of like a single target required, like Liquid Magma, where you'll blam, 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 blam. One target and AoE around it. So the Master of the Glaive Bloodlet build is very good at like AoEing and cleaving, and Fell Barrage, while using other abilities to give you charges, has a chance to AoE around the target you're bursting on as well. So with this build, you can take Demonic, I guess. We had theorized that you can take Nemesis, your other 106 talent, which is like super marked for death, where you increase the damage you inflict against a target by 10% for 2 minutes, the 2-minute duration of the cooldown as well. But when the target is slain, you will inflict 10% additional damage against all creature types matching the original target that died, humanoid, dragonkin, beast, elemental, etc., for the remaining duration. So if you are cleaving or AoEing down adds that share the same type as a boss, then you can Nemesis that. And it's easier because you always get the 10% damage for the duration, and you have to reapply it when it falls off and then kill the mob, and then you get the buff again. For all of your Bloodlet damage, all of your Glaive Toss damage, all of your Fell Barrage, you sort of like AoE-ish damage, right? This AoE-ish build also might work with Blind Fury, but again, Demonic Appetite, really good. But Blind Fury, when I was talking to Word about this, only seems to work well in fights where you're going to get tons of clumped AoE or need the extra AoE burst damage. Otherwise, reducing your cooldowns, giving you soul fragments on fights where you might be able to kill the adds to give you the extra souls from Demonic Appetite and the ones you get normally to lower your cooldowns, which will give you more Glaive Tosses, which will give you more Fell Barrages, all work together as like this AoE cleavy build. And the last one, the last build, also works fine with Nemesis. It could work with Momentum, but again, I just hate the option of like having to use Momentum and Fell Mastery and Prepared and Fell Blade with this weird movement-oriented nonsense. Is the Chaos Blade build, which is Demon Blades. Now, you can use Chaos Blades regardless of this build, but why I bring up Chaos Blades with Demon Blades is because of the two things. Demon Blades replaces and removes Demon's Bite. It's gone. It doesn't work. It's gone. It replaces it, and your auto attacks have a chance to deal additional shadow damage and generate fury passively. It does work now. You generate 20 on the attack, or 20, it's 20 to 30, I believe. It kind of averages out over time. It almost works on like every so many attacks, and it does extra shadow damage, not chaos damage, but shadow damage. But this is like a very along for the ride spec. It feels like you're just kind of like waiting for buttons to proc. However, because Demon Blade, works on auto-attacking, normally the talent build you might be running about with your spec is going to be probably focused on crit and mastery. Because crit is huge for Chaos Strike, mastery is great for Chaos Strike, because Chaos Strike is Chaos Strike and it Chaos Strikes. Also works well, of course, in Demon form. But Demon Blades means you want to auto-attack a lot. So haste becomes super important. So haste crit, because you want to auto-attack fast to build fury, you want to auto-attack fast to deal more shadow damage, you want that shadow damage to have a higher chance to crit, and Chaos Blades is a humongous auto-attack amp. 360% increased damage to your auto-attacks, and grants all of your mastery damage bonus to all types of attacks for 12 seconds. So that means that your Glaive Toss would deal more damage based on your mastery. Your Blade Dance would do damage based on your mastery. But if you're going Haste Crit, mastery's not a huge deal because all you're really doing is auto-attacking like crazy. And Chaos Blades, as you watch my numbers for my auto-attacks go up here, is ridiculous. I am auto-attacking right now for, what is that, 70,000? 150k crit? 142k crit? It is bonkers, but it's very, very single target, very, very haste auto attack focused. So Demon's Blade, Chaos Blades with like heroism could be huge, but it changes your stat priority to something that's very different. You can take Fell Blade. It's definitely recommended to take Fell Blade with Demon's Blade as well to give you another ability to press, because you're along for the ride, and basically just hitting things that light up. But those are the 4 builds that work with the Havoc Demon Hunter. So, going off this whole like, oh, Havoc is really easy, it only has 3 or 4 buttons, I just babbled for a half an hour. There are a lot of potentialities here with the Demon Hunter. A lot of things that could work. The last tier of things to go over is Soul Rending, which gives you 100% leech while Metamorphosis is active, which is nice. It makes you basically invincible in PvP in meta form or with demonic procs. It's nice. It's probably the best one to just set and forget in this talent tier. Desperate Instincts I never went over because it's garbage. It replaces Blur, removes it from your bar, and whenever you go under 35% health, it'll trigger Blur automatically with a 30-second internal cooldown. You never want that to happen. You want to be able to use Blur when you want it. The possibility of Desperate Instincts having more blurs is possibly good in PvP, maybe, because normally Blur has a minute cooldown. This is a 30-second cooldown, but you can't ever use it on purpose. And Netherwalk is the longer version with the stronger version. And the other ability you have is Fell Eruption, which is a 25-second cooldown, 20-yard range, 20 fury cost, ranged stun. I hope the effect is placeholder, because it looks like a shaman spell right now. It does a ton of attack power-based damage as physical, and is a 2-second micro stun. But it looks like a shaman ability right now, so hopefully that'll change. But that's on a weird tier when you get this Chaos Cleave synergy or Prepared for Fury management. But Fell Eruption is also tons of damage, so it might be used for just damage. Whereas if you don't want to use Prepared or you don't want to use Chaos Cleave, you just use this for like a burst phase when like a boss takes extra damage or something like that. It could be really worth it. Who knows? But Fell Eruption's in a weird spot right now, so I'm not sure about where it should be. I actually had some suggestions that Fell Mastery should be in the 100 tier, so you cannot take Prepared and Fell Mastery. But I think Blizzard wants you to have this Fell Mastery Prepared Momentum Fell Blade, like movement spec, right? It could be a thing. I don't know. Now, let's wrap this all up with your Twin Blades of the Deceiver. They are Varus and Muramas. So your default unlock is Fury of the Illidari, which actually has a damage amp in one of your artifact perks over here, which is called Rage of the Illidari. So the ability here is changed like a million times, but Fury of the Illidari is a 1-minute cooldown where you throw your glaives around you. It looks stupid, okay? Comments. Hopefully it'll change. It's placeholder, I imagine. it just kind of looks like Ravager nonsense. Or like the Blades of Light thing from Scarlet Monastery, Ravager ability. But it deals a ton of damage, does chaos damage, scales with your mastery, and it spins around you for a couple of seconds and deals damage. The Rage of the Illidari, then, also means 100% of the damage dealt will erupt in an explosion of fell energy, splitting the damage between all enemies within 8 yards. Kind of like a mini soul capacitor for only Fury of the Illidari, right? I hope they just changed the graphic to look like the fell blades you throw with Throw Glaive, because that doesn't look like your glaive, but the Fury of the Illidari looks like your war glaives, and it's kind of stupid. But that's these work together in tandem, right? Okay. I saw this earlier when I was doing the I-Beam stuff. Anguish of the Deceiver is that each time I-Beam deals damage to a target, you will cause anguish on the target. When anguish expires, it deals additional damage based on how many times it's stacked up. So, which is pretty simple to see here. Oh, I freaking... I gotta bring this back over. It's easy to see how it works, and it works with the talent Blind Fury to give you 14 stacks. This is give you 9. And it deals good extra damage based on, like, if you're AoEing mobs. But you kind of have to be AoEing mobs to really gain a whole benefit from Blind Fury. Otherwise, the bonus from Anguish is just kind of like, oh, it's just extra damage, right? And it scales with your mastery a little bit too, so it's like, it's okay. Your other golden circle, which you've been seeing this whole time I've been testing, is called Inner Demons, is when you Chaos Strike. More things tied to Chaos Strike. You have a chance to unleash your inner demon, causing an image of your demon form to crash down onto your target, dealing chaos damage to all enemies within 6 yards. So you see that, you've seen it multiple times here when I've been testing, that it just falls down on top of you. And now, of course, that I want it to actually proc, it's not going to work because, you know, reasons. But it should hopefully go off here in a moment. It has an internal cooldown, it only can proc so many times. But it tied to your Chaos Strike. So much tied to Chaos Strike. Of course, now it's not going to work. Of course it's not. Oh my goodness. Give me that Fury, though. Bloop. Come on, man. Go, Demon Form, go! Go, Demon Form, go, Demon Form, go. Go, Demon Form, go, I'm going to do it during Metamorphosis here, because I get more chances to get this thing to proc. Maybe not. Maybe not. No. Please. Game? Oh, whatever. You saw it before. Damn it. So those are your 3 gold circles. And then your main gold unlock. Your other abilities here, again, Balanced Blades gives you 2 additional glaive bounces, so 5 total. Unleash Demons reduces the cooldown of Metamorphosis by 60 seconds. That's why you see it as a 4-minute cooldown, not a 5-minute cooldown. Demon Speed means Fell Rush has no longer a cooldown when Blur is active. This will probably change because this is a relic of the past, but you can... Yeah, you can do that. Exactly. Maybe we'll change. Maybe we'll just give you charges back or something like that. You have Demon's Rage, which gives Demon's Bite more damage. You have Contained Fury. That's why I have 130 Fury. You get 30 more Fury from this. And you get Illidari Knowledge, which is a 12% reduction in magic damage taken. You get Deceiver's Fury. Dodging an attack or spell generates 15 Fury. The spell dodge is weird because Blur won't make you dodge spells anymore unless they rechange it again. But if you use Blur in dodge attacks or you passively dodge attacks, then you'll gain Fury. I tested it. Again, Feast on the Souls is consuming a soul fragment, reduces all cooldowns by 5 seconds. Chaos Vision is 15% more damage on I-Beam. Sharpened Glaive is more damage on Throw Glaive. Overwhelming Power is when Chaos Nova stuns a target, there's a 30% chance that a soul fragment is generated. More synergy with Unleashed Power and the Demonic build, because getting souls means reduced cooldowns. I don't think it works on these dummies, though. I don't think it ever worked on these dummies, because again, things don't work on, like, mobile. There's the demon form. Rawr. Doesn't work. It's weird. I don't know why. And then your last one is Critical Chaos, which increases the critical strike damage of Chaos Strike. And that is your Twin Blades of the Deceiver perks. So, all these wrapped together, which you've been here with about 45 minutes now. This spec has so much in it, and it's come a long way. So please don't say it's simple, because of all of my descriptions so far and understandings, it's definitely not a very simple spec. There are possibly 4 different talent builds based on the situation. You can, of course, mix and match things. There's a couple of things that are kind of, out of place, like Desperate Instincts should be a PvP talent only. I suggested this PvP talent. This is Rain from Above. 1 minute cooldown where you fly into the air, out of harm's way. While floating, you gain access to Fell Lance, allowing you to deal damage to enemies below. That should be a real talent. That's amazing. That's really cool. That should, like, replace something else. Like, move Fell Mastery here, and put Fell Eruption somewhere else. Maybe put Disparate Instinct somewhere else. Put Fell Eruption down here as a CC ability. And give us that freaking Rain from Above. It's so good. But, I can't even remember all this stuff off the top of my head, basically. I mean, I have notes over here, and you can see my notes in the video description box. But the bug report is down below. My notes are down below. The VOD of the whole testing process is down below. I'll take no more of your time here. This was the Havoc Demon Hunter. Brand new in Legion. So many different things that work together. But mostly everything is tied to Chaos Strike. And hit that like button if you enjoyed this gigantic preview of the Havoc Demon Hunter. If you sat through the whole thing, say down below, we did it! And subscribe if you want to see more videos in the future. Please check out my channel guide on my Twitch page. The link is right there, or you can type !guide in chat to get a link to all of my past testing and testing to come. I will see you in the next testing video. Thank you all so much for watching.